Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babyar, and I'm the Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you are a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded Great Commission worker. Our guest today is Callie Buchholtz, and Callie is a former graduate of John Brown University like myself, so just have to mention that from the get-go, maybe a generation or so apart. Nonetheless, same school, and she grew up in the Little Rock area, is that correct?
Yep.
But now you're in Chicago, right?
I am. I went north.
Yeah. And Callie, I know that you serve with TeachBeyond, and you do a lot of MPD training and coaching, and you facilitate in-house boot camps, and also you've been working with us on developing some future materials that as of yet cannot be undisclosed on this podcast. Would that be about accurate?
Yep.
Cool.
I keep busy.
You do keep busy. And I just appreciate you, first of all. Thank you for joining me for the podcast today and just kind of shooting the breeze to talk about prayer. It's an important topic.
Oh, yeah.
And as you know, a lot of support raisers, like they value it, but they're not sure what they think about it because there's that mixture of this all depends on God, but I'm having to work really hard, and where does one end and the other begin, and all that good stuff. As you are someone that has completely raised your support and you train others, tell me if you would, and I'm totally putting you on the spot here because we did not pre-rehearse any of this. So how was your prayer life back when you were raising support? Like, especially as you got started, think back to that and clue us in a little bit.
Well, I would say my support raising experience when I was first raising support fresh out of college was pretty unique in the fact that my support raising coaches lived with me. It was my parents.
Very convenient of you.
Yes. Helped a lot, made the world of difference, but also there was nothing that was not spoken into. So that included my prayer life. It included, oh my word, welcome to the breakfast table, Callie. Like, let's pray for your support today.
Oh, wow.
So that colored everything. It wasn't just me on my own sending a report in. It was living, breathing every day. And my mom is the most incredible prayer warrior of, oh my word, that sounded like a difficult conversation. We should stop and pray.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it colored everything.
Wow. So I would say that I'm not going out on a limb to say your experience was a little unique.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm aware of that.
Okay. So let me tell myself then, mine would have been a little different when I first started raising support before I had any training, by the way.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a coach. Oof. I did get I got suggested to purchase a book on support raising.
Okay.
That was the level of training that I had in its totality. And so I remember thinking, oh, okay, God's got this. I had great faith.
Yeah.
My competency lacked completely. And my prayer was, God, please give me money so that I can do what you called me to do. And not that God wouldn't honor that necessarily, but I don't know that it was, full, hearty prayers, full of dependency and really seeking out the good in the lives of those that I was inviting to be a part. Like, I don't even think I understood partnership. That was a whole different problem. I think I approached it more like, well, you give me money and I do the job. Why do we have to talk about it? So I was messed up in a whole lot of ways. Obviously, you already know that. I'm still a little off sometimes. But anyway, I digress. The point is I had to learn to pray very differently than how I started out early on. And as you know, a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, they're going to be all over the map. You're going to have people that literally, geography-wise, are all over the map in the world. But you're also going to have a lot of Americans that grew up going to church, maybe 3 times a week. And, oh, yeah, of course I would pray. But they haven't really processed through what an active prayer life looks like in the life of a support raiser. So speak into that a little bit. What thoughts and words of wisdom do you have that someone who, by the way, may or may not even been to a boot camp yet?
Right.
Just go ahead and I'm going to kind of turn the stage, the mic, if you will, over to you and say, teach us, Callie.
Oh boy, no pressure.
And don't screw it up. Okay, carry on.
Well, I guess kind of the 2 aspects of prayer in support raising I see, and the first one is this is a spiritual battle, and some people, and I'm definitely one of them, want to jump into the logistics, the to-do list, and just dive into, I need to make these phone calls and do this and say this and accomplish so many tasks. And they forget the huge, huge, huge spiritual aspect. And that is the foundation of support raising. It's God's calling in your life. It's looking at what he has for you and the opportunities that he's opening. And jumping into just all the things that I can do and accomplish and missing that spiritual component, you're missing the fact that the devil is going to be adamant to stop you.
Yep.
He's going to be doing everything he can to discourage you, to make sure you aren't successful. That is a spiritual battle you are engaging in. And missing that prayer aspect, which is such a wealth of strength and resources you have at your disposal, to miss that is kind of cutting your legs out from under you.
So true. You actually make me think about 1 Peter 5:8, which talks about being alert and being sober-minded, but also then refers to the devil prowling about like a lion seeking whom he may devour. Hey, listen, folks, if you're having a dream and an attempt and a goal and a vision of reaching the ends of the earth, every tribe, tongue, and nation, whether it's student ministry or church planting or global missions or planting water wells, whatever else, there's an enemy out there that would like to chew you up. Completely devour you, not just spit you out, but devour you. And you don't have very many tools to fight against that. But prayer is a significant one.
Yep. But then on the other side, yes, this is your walk with God needs to be so centered and so grounded. But often I see people only saying the prayer of like, Lord, help me. Lord, how can I do this? And it's so self-focused. And they're missing the whole vision of what is God calling these other people to. And they're missing the fact that they are approaching these people, sharing what God is doing with the invitation and the purpose of pursuing the voice and the direction of God in their life. And that's it. That carries you through the rest of your time in ministry too, of not just, oh, Lord, help me be better at this.
Right.
But what is God doing in your life? How can I pray for that?
Yeah. How's that? How can you minister to that person? Just a brief sidebar here to our listeners. Perhaps you've wanted to recruit someone to your staff team, but aren't sure how to broach the topic of support raising without either scaring them away or shoving a full copy of the God-ass book into their hands. So wouldn't you like an 8-page booklet that might calm their fears and quickly unpack the basic how-tos from a practical and biblical perspective? We actually have a booklet like that. It's called The 5 Keys to Support Raising, and you can get these booklets in English or in Spanish at cmmpress.org. You'll receive an additional 10% discount if you use the code SRS Podcast. As a bit of a sidebar here, I know I've experienced this. I imagine you have. And now and again, someone will bring it up to me. Hey, I went to a meeting. I thought it was a support raising meeting. And that ended up not being really the main thing. Like, God stepped in a powerful way. I needed to love on that person. I needed to encourage that person. They were dealing with the loss of a child. They were dealing with loss of a marriage. They were dealing with pain and just this crazy stuff that Great Commission minded workers have stepped into, and they've had to kind of check themselves and go, it's not a bad idea to invite this person to my team. This would be a bad time to invite this person to my team. And I think you only catch that if you're spiritually healthy and you're in, at least in your heart, a posture of prayer. Yeah.
It's something that when I get nervous, I always tend to go back to my really practiced script of what I want to say and how I want to say it. And I stop leaving room for the Spirit. I stop stopping myself. I stop listening to what the Lord might be saying and what the other person is saying.
Sorry, what?
Exactly.
Okay.
But it is a conversation. You're inviting someone to partner with you. You're maybe catching up with a current partner and realizing that God's purposes for that conversation might be different than yours.
Yeah.
And not being so stuck on what you are intending to say, you miss that.
Which is, honestly, it's quite easy to do because, let's just be honest. You have I'll go so far as say obligation Once you've invited somebody to sit down and be a part of your ministry, and the whole point that you set up, hopefully, if you did your phone call correctly, everybody knows you're going to be talking about your ministry and your vision and your budget goals and how God's changing lives. Like, at that point, that's the expectation. That's what you set up the appointment for. And so you have a responsibility to do that unless there's a curveball. Now, I will say, I would be concerned, and I knew a friend like this once, that every single support raising meeting suddenly turned into a chance for them to do impromptu counseling of the other person, and they struggled getting their support. Right? Yeah, they honestly just wanted to avoid talking about money. They had other problems. So hopefully that's none of our listeners. But there might be times where, because of your prayer life, you have to call an audible. And it's the most God-honoring, kingdom-building thing you can do, even though, in that moment at least, you're not inviting somebody to join your financial support team.
Well, I think it's such an attitude of being listening when you're meeting with someone. And it might not just be completely derailing your ask. It might just be, this person seems really connected to this aspect of my ministry. I don't really need to mention these other things that I commonly talk about, but this is what they're connecting with. Or maybe it's even, this person and what I'm hearing them talking about how they give, this needs to be a special project ask, not a monthly support ask, based on what I'm hearing from them right now. And that carries over to also, what am I hearing from God right now? What am I listening to? Instead of just being so focused on what I need to say and what agenda I need to push.
Right. So as people are, they're on their own, they're in their quiet space, they're not even in a meeting yet. What sort of praying? And I realize that this is wide open. So just because you say one thing doesn't mean that you're missing on the other thing. But give a little bit of perspective beyond, there's rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub.
I heard that one from my father a few times, actually.
And then there's a support raises version, which is God give me money. And so with a little more depth and with a little bit more of an eye on that support raising process, what are some things that people can, and maybe you would even say should, kind of keep on their list if they're trying to be a little organized with their prayer life when it comes to raising support?
Well, I think they need to be pursuing God beyond just support raising. Of just, Lord, what are you growing in me now? Having a posture of listening to the Lord in the sense that you are just sitting at the feet of God and asking, what do you have for me today in this process? Support raising is such a growing time. You will learn more about dependence on God, God's provision in your life than I think just about any other time in your life. But he also could be growing you in other ways through that process as well. And not being blind to those areas of growth is really key.
Okay, good. So I'm sitting alone in my office. I'm nervous about making phone calls to set up appointments. I might really dislike the phone, but I know I got to do this. I know I can pray for courage. I know I can pray that God, please let them actually answer the phone. Voicemail happens. That's all there is to it. But, there's things you can pray about. But keep going. Keep unwrapping. I'd love to hear from you, different ideas that you have for the person that's realizing they need to enhance their prayer life and not just their busy work. Because support raising is busy work. There's no doubt about that.
Yes, there is just a lot to do. I think one of the things that I would personally pray for is just, Lord, to guide the words that I say, that I would ask for his working in my life, that he would make me sensitive to what he's saying, because I know there's times where I'm not listening. So simply asking him to help me do that. And then also to begin to pray for the person I'm about to talk to. Yeah. For whatever is happening in their life that I'm not aware of. Who knows if they just had a rough day at work, if it's a great day. I have no idea what situation I'm walking into, but God does. Yes. And I want him to go before me to prepare hearts to listen to him more than me.
Speaking of that reminds me, this is probably the verse that I quote all the time in every boot camp. I might even use it on every podcast for all I know. It's just the one that always comes to mind is Proverbs 16:1, which talks about the plans of the heart belong to the man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. I think that's because it's so freeing.
Yeah.
Callie, I can think of one time sitting in a parking lot, stressing a little bit about some of the people I'd asked and needing their maybes to turn into yes and all that kind of stuff, and just having to go, you know what? No, I got to stop doing this. This isn't helping. This stressing out and worrying about what their answer is, I got to let it go. The plans of the heart belong to man. The answer of the tongue is from the Lord. And I'll tell you, there are some people I thought were going to say yes that said no. But there's also some people I was sure was going to say no that said yes. Mm-hmm. And it just proved itself all over again that God knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
I have my role to play, but he's the one that's going to move the right hearts to be on my team. And man, once I just kind of internalized that and started even repeating the scripture over and over in my head and all that, I began to have a greater peace and even probably better support raising appointments because I didn't smell desperate.
Oof.
Yeah. It was more like, hey, there's this awesome thing I'm doing. God's changing lives. I'd love you to be a part of it. Would you like to be a part? You know, obviously it's not exactly how I said it, but it was definitely an invitation. Versus, I fear early on I was a little bit stronger on the coercion part of things, and that's
common.
Yeah, not real healthy either. Yeah. So, anyway, well, hey, as we move to wrap up this podcast, I'd love for you just to take the chance to leave any final thoughts with someone who, again, may or may not have any really training. They might have read a book, or they might just be listening to a podcast. And again, we always encourage people to actually go through a Support Raising Solutions boot camp, but this might just be the kind of one of the first things that somebody's actually listened to. And so I want to give you kind of last shot here to drop some little wisdom bombs on someone that's trying to get going with their support raising, but also not really sure about this whole prayer aspect of it.
Well, I would say the fundamentals of raising support is partnership. And that means you're partnering with God to go before you, to call you, to direct your steps. And you're asking people to partner with you financially for prayer, for resources, for finances. And how you communicate that is so vital in the sense that you're also focused on them as a person, on them and what God is doing. A huge aspect of that is prayer. Praying for them, even when you meet with them, on your own as you go further in ministry, and the idea that it's an ongoing spiritual battle. You care about them and what their involvement is in your ministry to the extent you care how God is using it in their life.
Well, Callie, thank you again for joining me today. It's been a joy to be able to start getting to know you over the last couple of years. Thank you for what you do for the kingdom with TeachBeyond and for even some of your contributions to Support Raising Solutions. And I appreciate you taking the time today to step onto this podcast. God bless you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisingsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcast from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.